experienced trainer and very experienced real estate agent. She's an executive vice president with Remax Hallmark Group, which is one of the largest brokerages in Ontario. She's a renowned trainer and coach, has a huge presence, very well known. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Barbara for a second. She can give us a little bit of a background on herself, when she joined the industry, her back, a little bit of her backstory.
Thanks, Raheem. Geez, I've been in real estate since the 80s. I really started at the very bottom. I started typing offers on a typewriter. And from there, moved on to a successful selling career for 25 years. And for the past 10 and a half years, I have been in a leadership role and sort of moved through the ranks there as well. And spent a lot of time in my career teaching courses and training for the National Association of Realtors, the Ontario Real Estate Association, Humber College, to name a few others. But education is something I've been passionate about since the 90s, and with the evolution of technology, the landscape of education has really changed, and I look forward to speaking more about that with you. From the position of a business owner in the real estate industry, I think that for us as brokers and broker owners, it's really important for us to make sure that we properly onboard people that are new into the business and that they get the training they deserve. And that is, unfortunately, has been missing in our industry since I started. And it's a little bit better, but it still has a long way to go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great starting point, onboarding, because we have a lot of new graduates coming out of the RICO salesperson program, and like you said, like they're not necessarily equipped with like the practical skills for how to start a business and like make that transition from like a career where you're getting a salary to where this is very much eat what you kill. Like if you're not generating business, you're not going to have a very good year, and it's like getting that initial traction, right? Getting people to like give you a shot. You have to sort of position like, what is like my value proposition? How am I going to garner that business, right?
Exactly. And
Sorry,
with the small profit margins that brokerages run on, it's very difficult to dedicate the time and resources to creating the training that's necessary from an average brokerage standpoint. Like it's impossible. And people come out of Humber College and they select a brokerage based on whatever criteria they select, but generally they're fairly sensitive to dollars. And that sensitivity to dollars could mean starting their career with the absence of the training necessary to actually give yourself a fair start. It's a quagmire for sure.
Definitely, right? Like I think that's been really pronounced in the past year with a lot of agents, even existing agents, right, have switched from regular brokerages to like quote unquote discount brokerages where they're either like non-AREA members so they can opt out of the wellness program fees. Like they're really becoming dollar conscious, but they're not thinking about like, how is my business going to operate? What kind of support am I going to have? Like, how am I going to, grow like my own self, my own professional development, right? And I think that's
Exactly.
something that they really need to emphasize, like that. It's a small cost. It's not a cost, it's an investment in yourself. I think people are misperceiving training too much as a cost center, where it's for even the brokerage and the agents, right? It's an investment in yourself, because like you want to emphasize that retention, that longevity. You want to make sure your agents feel like this is why I still work with this particular brokerage, right? Like they've been there for me since the start. Like I think you've been with Hallmark for ages, right? Like, and you've seen it grow
Yeah,
from.
and I look at training also as an investment to my future. And I also know that not all training is equal, because I've taken many courses over the years and attended many events. And it's not just the dollars that you're spending, it's the time away from your business to work on your business that's also difficult for people. But I look at what's happening in the US right now. And this is just such a perfect example. I've been teaching the ABR course for 24 years. And anyone in the US that took that training and actually implemented the ideas in that program into their business is not suffering today. Everybody else is like freaking out. Oh my gosh, the whole industry's changed. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? But if you've already sharpened your saw and took the training before you needed it, then what's happening right now in the US is not a seismic shift, because your mindset is already looking after the buyer. Your mindset is already thinking about being a professional buyer agent. Like, that's what that course teaches. One of my favorite programs of all time is that program, because it's the equivalent to being a great listing agent, is being a great buyer
Yeah.
agent and treating the buyer the same way that you would treat a seller, and all the things that go with that, that is, absent in a lot of businesses, right?
No, absolutely, right? Like I think just to your point, like even picking that I want to be a buyer agent or a listing agent is like an important decision because they, as much as they overlap, there's still a significant difference if you really want to specialize in one or the other. And that's why you see the same agents winning a lot of business, right? It's not as simple as like you can service both sides. There really is a lot of differences when you're on like the sell side or you're on the buy side with respect to protecting your client's interests and making sure that, you're in compliance with all the rules.
Right. Exactly. It's interesting. Like, I just think that education for me, I look at, whenever I go to an event, I think about what's the ROI.
Okay.
If I'm taking a course, what's the return on investment? And sometimes the return on investment is, I'm going to feel better about my business. And when I feel better, I perform better. So
Okay.
maybe I didn't pick up a tactic, but I picked up a new perception, and that new perception helps me in my business. I will take other training that will give me tactics and gambits that I can actually take and implement into my business. And that gives me a return on investment, because I know that if I put good systems in my business, that those systems will leverage my time, and that the time that I'm investing now will pay for itself, because I'll be able to do more things in less time because of that particular training. Then there's regulatory training that keeps me out of trouble, because if I'm in trouble, then I have a lot of energy and a lot of time and money to defend myself against an action. So, there's different types of training that we need to look at all of those things. Sometimes we need I call it a brainwash. Our brain gets dirty. It's a lonely business, real estate. So when we spend too much time just with ourselves and no time with other people and other ideas, then we get really married to our own perception. And sometimes that can be a negative experience, because our perception might not be the right perception. So sometimes I go to training and I take courses and I learn things because I need a brainwash, you know?
I love that. I love that term. And I just really want to emphasize that even someone at your level is still going out there and getting training. So it's not like that training, because there's like a misconception. I think a lot of people think when they hear training, they think that, oh, that's just for like new grads, that like, I've been in the business for 10, 20 years, whatever it is. And like they think that it's not applicable to them.
That's so dangerous. It's so
Yeah.
dangerous. You can be in the business for 20 years and have the equivalent of 1 year in real estate, or you can be in the business for 1 year and have the equivalent of 20 years. It,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how long you've been in this business. I've been in this business a long time, and I'm learning something new all the time. And I love that. I love that, because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that sort of note, like from your experience, what has been like what you think is like the most significant shift in the way that brokerages sort of approach learning and development? Maybe since like COVID happened, that really like made a lot of brokerages forcibly adapt technology, right? Because a lot of brokerages like they're still very old school. They do things by hand almost. Like I've seen agents with post-it notes all over their desk, and I'm like, how are you not using like a CRM even, right?
Okay, I'm looking at 4 post-it notes on my desk right now.
Four is okay. I've seen like the whole monitor covered and like they got like written notes everywhere. I'm like, how
But
do you
I
keep
do
track
have
of
a
this?
CRM. I use Follow Up Boss. I do have a CRM, and I love my CRM, and it's incredible. I don't know how people manage without one. Um, I think that from the brokerage perspective, from when I started and even in the middle to where things are now, like, one of the notable differences is how quickly, and it's such an overused term, but it is applicable here, the pivot that we had to do with COVID was moving things online, and then everyone got Zoom fatigue. And so, we've tried to get people back into classrooms, because we understand that you need a mix of in-person and online to really be effective across the agent, population, because not everyone learns well online. Not everyone is able to turn everything off and focus on one thing. And we know that people's attention span is greatly reduced.
Absolutely. Right.
So I think we need to look at implementing a combination of online training and in-person stuff. So this is what we've done at our company is we have hybrid training, we have online training, and we have in-person. But the in-person is really limited now because geography, right?
Yeah.
So we have like big geography with our company. We have 40 offices. We're all over the place.
Yeah.
And
Almost 1,500
somebody
agents.
from Peterborough is not going to drive to Ottawa for a training class. It doesn't matter how good it is. Like
Yep.
it's not going to happen. So if we have a training program that we feel is vital to everyone, it's online.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's like the new normal, right? Like I think that's it's one of like the modern learning approaches. I think, like you said, though, like the only challenge is keeping people engaged, right? Like some people,
Right.
you know, log on to Zoom, but then they're like making breakfast or doing something else while they're doing it, so they're not really absorbing or getting the value of the training, right? They're just sort of there, like they've checked in, but they're not physically present,
Right.
right?
Which brings me to a distinction of different online training modules, which is one of the things I like about your platform, is that your platform creates the opportunity for engagement by having, you know, that learning management system where you've got little quizzes and people are checking in. And, you know, if they didn't pay attention to the comments or the slide before, they won't be able to move on to the next level because they have to
Mhm.
answer a question, right? And that to me really it adds so much value to the learner because I mean, we like gamifying everything, right? You know, I grew up on Commodore 64, so I might be dating myself a little bit, and Pac-Man and all those video games, right? And we respond well to that format. And if you can create that in an online learning environment where people feel like they're getting a reward because they're getting the answer correct,
Yep.
or that's really big. And that's not something that the average brokerage can create. Like, I mean, I looked at it before you and I met, and I looked at it and I went, this is a lot of work. This is not my area of expertise. This is not my lane. I'm going to stay in my lane and let people that do this for a living create it. And then I'll use what's created by someone else. I
Yep.
can put together a PowerPoint presentation and deliver a talk. That's going to hit 10% of the people, right? They're going to remember 10% of what I said. But
That's the problem.
if they actually do exercises and the learning management system is created in such a way that there's engagement and there's involvement with the learner, then that improves the learning experience exponentially. And that's what we need for brand new people, for intermediate people, and also for advanced.
Yeah. No, I think that's like a extremely important point, right? That really need to emphasize. Now, from your experience, have you seen like a lot of brokerages are still like resistant to adopting like you know technology even in this day and age? Like they almost want to revert back to like their previous sort of operating methods because sort of like I feel like it's crazy to think that it's like almost 4 years since like COVID first happened, like the pandemic, and it just like I've seen a lot of like regression, right? Even like other professions, they're really bringing people back to the office. Like the downtown core is slowly starting to pick up again. It's not what it was, but like you know, many clients, like I know, like other colleagues, like they're back in the office at least 3 days a week.
Yeah, I've had it both where I've been in every day, and then I really like the hybrid version of managing my business today. So yesterday I was in the office all day.
Okay.
Today I'm in my home office because I've learned through COVID that my very productive days where I get a lot of focus work done happens better in my home office because of the environment. I have less interruptions. And I
Okay.
think realtors have realized that as well. So, you know, brokerages need to do something engaging to get people to come into the office because now they're comfortable working from home. So we do watch parties, for example. So we'll have, you know, a course that we want to do online together as a group, and we'll have a watch party at the office, and people will come in and get that human connection, because that human connection was really missing during COVID. And I think that those people that have not come back to offices, that have not re-engaged with people personally, have isolated themselves in such a way that it's to me personally not good for your mental health.
No, absolutely. I think it's like without that human connection, and it's like this is still a human connection business, right? As much as we've seen like the prevalence of online platforms, there's been like a bunch of them that created during the pandemic. I think most of them have fizzled out. It never really took off here, right? Like in the US, like Zillow is still pretty big, but like it's never really picked up here in our market, right? It's like the use of an agent is still extremely like common. I think like the only problem is that we have like a lot of agents who are not really getting a lot of business or doing a lot of business, and that's not necessarily a product of their own doing, right? Like there is like maybe too many agents for the amount of buyers that we have, especially in like our current market. But I think like, newer agents shouldn't also be like, have their hopes diminished about the business, because they can come in and they can succeed. They really just need to make sure that they're at the right place, like the right office with the right support, getting the right training, the right tools, right?
Exactly. And I have learners in classes that I see on a regular basis, and they show up and they want to learn, and they know so much about the business, yet they still have difficulty getting traction out there in the real world, even though they are incredibly competent and they have an understanding of how everything works. And it's this business is, some people are just born for this business, I really think, and
Mhm.
learn along the way, where other people spend a lot of time learning, but they have this fear of practicing what they've learned, so they get stuck in,
Okay.
I just need to learn more, I just need to learn more, I just need to learn more. And I've actually pulled people aside and said, I don't want to see you in any more of my classes until you go out in the real world and practice what you already know. And I think that there's a fear of people going out and practicing and experimenting with what they know. So I think that
Okay.
there's some psychology too that I address with people when I see it,
Like
like,
a fear
okay,
of rejection almost, that like they're
like,
scared to like be like turned down, like, oh no, I have a broker already, or no, I really appreciate the offer. And it's like, like human beings in general don't like rejection, right? Like people don't like rejection,
right,
right? And I
right.
think that's like to your point about some people are built for it. They're just like, it just rolls right off their back. Like they can make 100, 200 cold calls a day, and they're like, if I get one person to give me like a meeting, then that was a successful day, right? And a lot of people get deterred, because it's hard, right?
It
Especially
is
when you're
hard.
starting out. Like,
It is hard. So the thing that we take with us everywhere we go is our mindset. And what I've learned just, in the last 12 months, and I've seen it because I watch for it, is what's the mindset of the person? And I heard someone say at a conference I attended last week, because I still go to stuff because there's so many incredible people to learn from. And this person on stage I admire greatly. And he was asked a question, and the question was, how do you know who to hire on your team if you're looking for a buyer agent? He runs a very successful team. And he said something really interesting. He said, I want to know their story about how they went through elementary school, how they went through high school, if they had post-secondary. I want to understand how they responded to life. And
okay,
I also want to know, are they busy now? Because if they're not busy now, there's mindset stuff. So one of the things I'd love to see introduced in our industry is mindset training. I think that for people in sales, we're in the rejection business. We're in the business of waking up unemployed every day.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you need a,
absolutely.
you need a mental fitness about yourself in order to be able to make sense of that world, so that it doesn't bring you down, so that it doesn't beat you up every day. The most successful realtors out there are realtors that if they were boxers, they're going 12 rounds. You know,
That's a,
they're
that's a good analogy.
getting knocked out, and not, they get back up and they get back up and they get back up and they get back up, and it's mindset. And so
Yeah, that resilience, that it's not
the
them, it's just
resilience and the grit, and that is really something that we don't talk about in the real estate business enough. Yes, I know regulatory, I know this, I know this, I know this, I've done all the training. Why can't I make any money?
no,
Let's
that's
let's
like sort of when like Excel was conceived, they sort of saw that gap that it's like because NIIT delivers the RICO program, we saw firsthand that there's like a lot of agents that are coming out with technical knowledge, but they don't have the practical and like they don't have, like just how to handle cold calling, how to handle objections. So, like in our platform, I think you've seen it, like we have like a role play function, and we found that that was really popular because role play is something, even if you're doing it with your manager, it becomes awkward as soon as you know each other, because then it's like, wait, is that a real reaction, or is that what you think I want to see, because that's what I'm going to respond to as like potentially with a buyer or a seller, that why you should hire me, right?
exactly. There's
And it,
so many knowledge gaps when people come out of the program. I mean, it's for us to actually properly teach a human how to survive in real estate and how to thrive in real estate, it would be a 6-year long course. Right? So
yeah, I think
it's kind of like when you get your driver's license, right? Now they've graduated it, which is good, because when I first got my driver's license way back in the day, I remember thinking, there's no way I'm going to drive on the 401. There's no way I'm going to drive downtown Toronto or downtown Montreal. Like, I just don't feel ready for that. And that's how people are coming into our industry. They're like, I don't feel ready for that. And we're sending them out prospecting, but then they don't have all the tools they need to actually show up properly for the meeting if they get a meeting or they get an appointment. And
mhm.
so it becomes a vicious cycle of, I'm good at prospecting, I'm good at converting that appointment to an appointment, but I'm failing on the appointment because I don't know how to convert the appointment to a listing
Yeah,
or to a
yeah,
or to a sale.
or to a
So there's a
purchase,
lot
yeah,
of
like
skill, there's a lot of gaps, and there's a lot of skills that need to be taught and that need to be remembered for people that have been in the business for a long time. Like, please don't get married to how you've always done things, because you're going to wake up one day and it's not done that way anymore. And I hope that you expanded your horizons and picked up some programming to open your perspective and see how things can be done maybe a little bit differently, and maybe it's different than how you do it now, but maybe it's better.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think like with the implementation of Tressa, that's been like a big change because the exclusive listing market has really been rattled. Like a lot of people don't even know that there is such a thing as an exclusive listing market, and that's off-market property is the way that they're allowed to trade now. That bringing transparency, the realtor cooperation policy. I know you're very versed in Tressa. We were talking about this before offline. That like there's not a lot of courses out there. There's still I've met so many agents, whether they're experienced or they've been in the business for a long time. There's so many people with questions about Tressa. Am I being compliant right now? Is this okay? Like, is this scenario like, because everyone's kind of looking for a loophole, that is there a way that I could still do things the way that I used to do them and just sort of, pay lip service to the new process,
Now,
especially with like the 3-day rule.
I don't know if NIIT did the RICO. Did you? So do you do everything for RICO? Because I took the RICO course on Tressa and it was really well
The
done.
MCE is, I think Rico still controls the MCE after, but we did
Okay.
update everything in our platform to be
Yeah.
Tressa compliant. And now we have a Tressa bot. So like an agent can ask questions relating to Tressa, and it has like the whole act imported, and it can give you like a chat GPT style response with like, more ongoing like feedback on everything, or tell you like, look for exactly this section, this is where you'll find what you're looking for with respect to that clause, or to learn about it, because it's really like it's a challenge. Like experienced brokers of record and experienced managers, team leads, they're all struggling because they're like, there's so many variations of what's the scenario, that it's like, yeah, it's a little bit different. I don't want to say yes yet. I need to just double check this before, I send an agent out into the field and then they do something and it's like we get slapped with a huge fine, right? Like,
Yeah, it's the biggest change in legislation since I got in the industry. And to expect that it could be rolled out perfectly is unrealistic. So anybody that expected that will be disappointed. And if they're still holding on to that disappointment, you need to build a bridge and get over it. Because it's just not,
right?
it didn't get rolled out the way we wanted it to. Okay, so it got rolled out. It's been around for a
It
little
did.
while now. And guess what? We're all in the same boat going in the same direction. So what's the underlying principle of Tressa? It's transparency, consumer protection, and choice, right? For the consumer.
Mhm.
So if you can just keep that in mind and the consumer's happy, if you didn't do things perfectly, like I wouldn't lose any sleep over it,
Yeah, no, it's like
right?
it's well, easier said than done, right? But like,
Yeah.
um there's still it's like, when you have like a great support team like yourself, it's easier to like, like, okay, I can rest my that I'm okay. I did everything by the procedure because it was already there in the process that I'm following, right? So
Well,
a
even
question for
I was teaching Tressa stuff in November that by December was different. So
yeah, no, there's been a lot of like, yeah. So that, I was just gonna ask a question about that, like, people who like, I'm sure you guys had some in-person and hybrid sessions about Tressa, educating agents about it. So once they've seen one and when there's changes, like, are you getting a lot of objections that's like, no, I already know that, or like, we don't, we're good, we don't need to, like, is like, are you getting less participation, or like, how are you handling that? Because it's still like kind of almost like a work in progress, Tressa is, right?
it really is. And so we have the core programming and we just put, as of such and such a date, this is what we know. And then
Okay.
as things get updated, we update, as of this date, this was added, as of this date, this was added, as of this date, we now have more understanding of what this means. And I mean, that's really all that you can do. It's really hard to disseminate information to the masses in the real estate industry as a brokerage because realtors get inundated with email and they're busy. They're busy trying to make money. And we know that reading your email is not an income producing activity necessarily. So that's the first thing that gets lost when somebody has to pay their mortgage this month and they need a sale, they're out there hustling, right? So it's difficult to disseminate information and it's difficult to disseminate updates as well. And and we've noticed some communication gaps between some of the associations around Tressa. And, like one day I log into web forms and there's a new form and I didn't know there was a new form. Like I didn't miss the memo because I read all my emails eventually.
Mhm.
And there was no memo. So like, how did that happen? How do we have a new form? How did they change? Like, so it's been frustrating for sure. And I think we can do a lot better with releasing information. It needs to be in one place.
Absolutely, right? Like, and it needs to be like, continuously updated, easy to access, and just like you can rely on the information that's coming out, that it's like the most current, the most up to date, right? And it's just,
Yeah.
I think that's something that like, the skew of brokerages in Ontario, we have a lot of brokerages, but like the majority of them are small, like more like under 50 agents, I think is like sort of like the threshold that I just filtered by. It's like that's the majority of the populace, like over 80% are under 50 agents. So I wanted to ask you that, like, without having like a robust scale like yourselves at like Hallmark, what would be like something that you would suggest for like, smaller brokerages to think about with respect to modernizing their operations, like sort of being prepared for Tressa and like, the changes that are coming, because we've seen a lot of consolidation now in the industry. Like I see a lot of experienced agents that are like, I'm retiring, but they're just selling the business to another brokerage owner, right? And like they're just rolling the agents, like they're not passing it on kind of thing. I've seen more consolidation there,
Right.
but I feel like
Um,
that still concentrates the knowledge with people who know, right? Like it's like for like a new agent, it's still very difficult to break into that fold, right? Even if it's like a monetary thing, because it's like I can't buy an existing brokerage. I just don't have the resources yet. I'm not established, right? I might
right.
have the technical knowledge and like the grind and the grit to do that, but I just don't have like the monetary means to pull it off.
Right. And that's very similar to broker owners that are looking at how do I educate my agents?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started with my company 10 years ago, we didn't have a vice president of career development. We didn't have the budget for a full-time salary for somebody to say, hey, how are we educating our people? There's no budget. And at that time we had 600 agents and there's no budget at 600 agents. So what we did at that time is we looked for service providers that offered training programs and we bought it or we promoted it in some cases, promoted it to our agents for them to purchase, or we bought the basics and made that available to our agents. And years and years ago, we did purchase a learning management system through a provider that filled a gap for us that we couldn't fill ourselves because we didn't have the budget. And that's what broker owners need to do is they need to fill those gaps however they can, because if you're not doing it, someone else is doing it. And as a brand new realtor, you need to go somewhere that has that brokerage has filled those gaps for you, because you don't have the budget either. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, right. Like I think and just like on that same note, it's like everything nowadays, like with like the advent of like AI and like, social media and everything, it's like getting things more personalized. Like, if you talk about something, it's almost like you feel like my phone's listening to me because now I'm getting pushed ads for like these shoes that I was just thinking about. It's like so coincidental, or like flights or whatever it is. So I don't know, like if you guys have like particularly like specific like a particular agent's path, but I'm sure you have like a few different paths for when you're onboarding agents. I know you guys only really onboard more experienced agents. You're not really like recruiting like new agents out of the program so much.
We actually had a lot of new agents during COVID we actually we redesigned our brand new agent onboarding program, because we had
Okay.
so many new people coming in, and we wanted to make sure we gave them the best start possible. So we did design a program to fill that need, because we had one, but it's better now. It's been redesigned. So I'm confident hiring somebody out of Humber College today, where 10 years ago, no, I wasn't.
Okay.
Right?
That's good to know. So with that, just a quick like on the sort of like wrapping up kind of note, what did you find was like the most like effective with respect to like when you developed that new program? Was it just sort of like getting them like up to speed like in like the first 90 days, and then like giving them like some real world experience, like kind of like a mentorship sort of program? Or
I wish we've tried mentorship programs, and I have yet to find a way to implement it. If somebody has a way, I'd love to learn it. I just,
okay.
we do it informally. So we have an
Okay,
informal
yeah.
mentorship, but it's not a formalized mentorship programs, but we do have it informally, and it does exist, grassroots. What was the question again?
Yeah, and I was just thinking about just sort of like like what really worked for like those new agents, that like what you saw,
Oh yeah.
if there's one thing
So
that they could take away, like for agents that are watching today that are newer agents, that this was something that was really effective, that like in the first 90 days when you graduate, this is something that you need to really sink your teeth into, because it's going to pay off tenfold in your career, right? Whether it's like
yeah.
mindset or just being prepared for like the rejection, things like that.
Yeah, our 10 modules cover various different things. We have like a business planning module to like set up a business plan, set up a marketing plan, set up a
Okay.
prospecting plan. So I think that's really probably
Putting
the
some
foundation.
structure,
It's the
putting some
structure,
structure.
right? And
Absolutely.
then it's
Absolutely.
a matter of fitting in the pieces, it's like Jenga. If you don't put the right pieces in the right place first, it falls down. So the business plan is really the foundation of that. And then we add in the skill sets. And one of the skill sets we noticed that was missing coming out of the program was drafting offers. And we even noticed that today with experienced realtors, even if they're 5 years in the business, because they're used to writing clean offers with no conditions. They're not used to doing
Yes. Yes.
15 signbacks. And there's all these mistakes being made with offers today with people that have been in the business for 5 years. But like when I started, it was a recession in the early 90s. Like I did 35 signbacks on a deal once.
Wow. I mean,
It
that was
took
a
me a week. It took me a week to put the deal together, 35 signbacks and 3 conditions. Like that's
oh
how
my
I
God. And
started in the
everything was done
business.
over fax back then, or like by courier. Like there was no email back then.
Exactly. And you had
So,
6 copies of everything and they all had to be the same. It was a nightmare. So today, because I learned stacked, I learned the business in a difficult environment. It was easier for me to change. It's easy to take something out of an offer, a lot easier than it is to put something in an offer. And that's what we're faced with today is we've got a generation of realtors that don't have the skill sets for the market that we're in. So I think what we need to focus on going forward is We have buyers markets, sellers markets, and balanced markets. And we need to make sure that we have the training for all of those markets so that when people are coming into the industry, or people that are in the industry, that there's a shift and now they need to like sharpen their saw, that all of those pieces are in place.
No, I think that's like a great way to put it. I mean, like we're sort of in a mixed market right now. It seems to be like
It depends on where you are, and it depends on what price range you're in.
that is very true too. No, that is very true. Right. That is
Yeah.
very, very true. I mean, like rate cuts seem to be coming on the horizon, but we got like lots, like, we could have a whole podcast about where rate cuts are going. Any final thoughts that you want to leave for any of the newer and experienced agents that have been watching with us? We don't have any Q&A right now. Looks like we've answered all those questions as we were talking.
No problem. I think for realtors, just don't stop growing. Anyone that I know that has been in the industry for decades, successfully for decades,
Mhm.
is always going back to the well to fill their cup with new information and new ideas and new perspectives. And
New training, yeah.
yeah, for sure. And for brokerages, I would say if you don't already have it, find somebody that does have it and buy it.
I think, yeah, I think that's the best way to put it, right? Like, that's really why we conceived the Excel solution, is to provide like a way for brokerages to adopt at like a very cost-effective manner, having like a very standardized platform that allows them to deliver training effectively. And with a lot of the things that we talked about today, gamification, increased agent engagement, all those kinds of things. With that said, we will be sending out a survey to our participants just to get your feedback on anything that you disliked about the presentation today. I wanted to say thank you again to Barbara for your time today. It's always so insightful speaking with you. We could always, be going on for ages. And with
My
that
pleasure.
said, thank you so much.
Thanks, Raheem.
Take care. We'll
Take
talk to you
care.
soon.
Talk to you
Bye.
soon.